I am ill-equipped to review PlayStation VR 2. But is this my fault? Of course not. It's the games media's fault. It's 2023's fault. But most importantly, it's your fault. If your first name is Spider and your last name is Man 2. PSVR 2 is a technical marvel, no doubt about it. The haptic triggers from the DualSense have been transplanted into the PSVR's new controllers with no trauma required. These triggers fulfill the same immersive qualities they achieved with the DualSense inside a new device that is built for absolute immersion. It's one thing for the triggers to truly feel like pulling back a bow and arrow when the game is flat on the screen. But it's another thing entirely when players are transported into the virtual world where they can grab onto any object while actually feeling the item realistically resist between their fingertips. Horizon Call of the Mountain is the system's greatest showcase of these features, as well as what the power of the PlayStation 5 can do for virtual reality games. Taking full advantage of the beefy PS5 alongside visual tricks like foveated rendering creates one of the most high-definition VR experiences on the market. You know, the farmer's market. For gamists. Although some devs haven't fully utilized this technological bump, it's a massive leap forward from PlayStation's first VR headset and provides an undeniably next-gen experience. If next-gen gaming means accidentally tripping over your wires. Now, all the bells and whistles in the world can't make this $550 product worth buying without some top-notch games to take advantage of it. And as of November 2023, PSVR 2 has the stuff. I think. Horizon Call of the Mountain is the flagship launch title that delivers on gorgeous graphics and immersive gameplay. It's just not always the most fun to play. The game juggles seamless rock climbing mechanics, bow hunting, stealth, puzzles, and narrative segments, but drops the ball due to its disproportionate balancing of these activities. Rock climbing is well realized in VR, but takes up a vast majority of the game's 8-hour runtime, which peaks too soon without much more new to add that could increase the challenge. All they had to do was make this an Uncharted VR game, and then nobody would complain about the climbing. While the rest of these activities aren't much more deep or enjoyable, they don't need to be. Combining them all is what creates the most engaging experience. Now, if the formula was properly measured out, it would be a much more fun and much better paced game. On the flip side, there's What the Bat, which abandons any aspirations for graphical fidelity in favor of creatively bonkers gameplay. God has bestowed upon you baseball bats for hands, and it is up to you to solve menial tasks without the use of opposable thumbs. Solving all your problems with a good crack of the bat has never felt so satisfying. I stand corrected. However, even What the Bat messes up the balance of its unique ideas by relying too heavily on controlling something with a remote control, while controlling the remote control with baseball bats that are also your hands. Did I mention you have baseball bats for hands? Let's see, what else did I play on my expensive and fancy and new and expensive VR headset? Money well spent. Besides revisiting some PSVR 1 classics that were essentially remastered for PSVR 2, I didn't spend much time with my headset because stupid 2023 has been too good of a year for those gosh darn non-VR games. Look at them, mocking us. The amount of awesome titles released this year was absolutely bonkers, and PSVR 2 gave me bats for hands. The VR headset came out in February, and by the time it had released, there had already been massive AAA blockbusters on store shelves, like Dead Space Remake, Hogwarts Legacy, and SpongeBob SquarePants The Cosmic Shake. How can you compete with SpongeBob? VR may seem like it's appealing to a different audience than the one picking up Hogwarts Legacy or Like a Dragon Ishin, and on a small scale, that's mostly true. But on a larger scale, I believe it becomes a problem. A few big games here and there shouldn't rock the boat, but when every month seemingly has a must-play AAA blockbuster, then attention from both games media and the hardcore gamist is quickly tugged away from VR. I mean, what are you supposed to do? Stop playing Forspoken? The massive overlap between VR and non-VR players is the hardcore gamist crowd, because VR gaming is still in its early, premium, and experimental phase that mainstream audiences haven't fully wrapped their heads around. However, the same hardcore player wants to play whatever is the hot new release in their sexy gaming area. OMG guys, I just matched with the Necromorph on Tinder. And they just left me on red. When there's Dead Space Remake, Resident Evil 4, Jedi Survivor, Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate 3, Spider-Man 2, Starfield, Lord of the Rings, Gollum, and so much more must-plays to play instead, PSVR 2 needs a Zelda, Spider-Man, Starfield, Resident Evil, Gollum killer to compete, but it doesn't have that. This should not be confused with me saying PSVR 2 does not have any good games worth playing. That is categorically false. A quick look into the prominent but niche VR games media will unearth tons of unique and worthwhile VR games to play. If only I still had money in my wallet after buying this darn thing. Sadly, as good as they may be, none of them hold a candle to any game coming from the new greatest year in gaming history.
They will tell tales of this golden age, the year of Baldur's Gate 3. And the year that PSVR 2 got royally screwed.
So the hardcore game enthusiast no longer has an appetite to explore the VR world. Their plate is already full. There's barely any more room for another Game of the Year contender like RoboCop Rogue City, let alone a great VR title. Audience interest is at an all-time low for VR when flat-screen gaming is thriving this hard. VR needs time and investment to grow, but it doesn't stand a chance against a well-worn industry that has meticulously formulated the exact ways to make the brain fire all the right chemicals that keep players engaged extensively. We are not all digital drug addicts, just the vast majority of us. It doesn't help either when all the popular games media websites neglect the VR gaming scene. Rarely do they put out VR reviews unless it's for the highest of high-profile games. But those are the games that are unlikely to innovate in the VR space. You can tell just by looking at the best VR game nominations at the Game Awards. Horizon Call of the Mountain is an interesting tech demo for PSVR 2, but it's not the system's most compelling title. That's not just me saying that. Many of the critic reviews express this, yet it's nominated for Best VR Game by the same circle of critics. I can only assume because it's the one VR game many of these people played all year, or worse, the only one they even know about. To be clear, I am aware of the hypocrisy that Horizon is the only one I've played too. But, obviously, shut up. I kept myself well versed enough in the scene to know tons of titles like The Light Brigade, Red Matter 2, and VR Skater. So that makes me credible, right? VR critics say that these are fantastic games that I'm sure deserve a spot over Horizon, but less people know about them. Yes, I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3, but seriously, you haven't played Galaxy Kart? What upsets me the most is that I don't really blame the games media for ignoring VR either. If I'm already feeling enough pressure to constantly play the next big AAA game, I can only imagine what the average IGN reviewer feels. And with a site like that, they are only going to lean on the games that drive the most traffic. This means coverage on a niche product like VR is already an uphill battle. I may be unequipped to accurately review PSVR 2, but I wish I wasn't. I wish I had more time to play this dazzling machine and all the hidden gems it holds. Flat screen gaming is fantastic, but it's a known quantity at this point. This is a great year for video games, but as more and more games become homogenized, the industry grows stale and predictable to me. VR reminds me of the early Wild West days of gaming, the days where not every game mechanic was tested to oblivion and got all their rough edges sanded off, when experimentation was the expectation, and everyone was still discovering the best ways to play. Fun and unique games are around every corner in VR. It just needs more people to peek inside. This year I happily walked down the VR alleyway, but I'm ashamed to be one of those people who didn't turn the corner. I was too busy enjoying 19 inches of Venom.